One evening, as they sat on the couch after a typical workday, Jason dropped a bombshell that would forever alter the dynamics of their relationship. He turned to Maya with a peculiar request. "I want you to do something for me." With 5 men. Maya was taken aback, unable to process the words immediately. Jason, usually reserved and conservative about intimacy, had always been the one to champion their monogamous relationship. His request was so out of character that Mia thought she had misunderstood. Jason explained that he had been fantasizing about a scenario in which Maya explored her desires with other men. He assured her it wasn't about dissatisfaction with her. It was something he believed would bring a new spark into their lives, a deeper bond, and even a sense of liberation. For Mia, the request was a profound shock. On the surface, she tried to mask her feelings, but inside, a storm raged. She was confused, hurt, and bewildered. Why would Jason, her husband, the man she loved, ask her to do something so intimate with other men? Did it mean he wasn't enough for her? Or worse, was he trying to manipulate her into agreeing to something he secretly desired? Over the next few days, Maya wrestled with the emotional weight of Jason's request. She loved him deeply, but couldn't shake the feeling that her trust was being tested in a way she wasn't prepared for. She started to feel an odd sense of guilt, as if she were being asked to prove her love for him by compromising her own boundaries. At the same time, she questioned if her own attachment to Jason was strong enough to ignore her inner turmoil. Could she stay true to herself while maintaining the integrity of their marriage? Maya felt a deep emotional conflict. The pressure to keep the peace, to please her husband, and to avoid the possibility of this breaking them apart gnawed at her. At times, she considered saying yes if only to satisfy Jason's fantasy and make him happy, but each time the thought crossed her mind, it only filled her with more uncertainty. It wasn't just about the act itself, but the emotional toll it would take on her. Would it change her relationship with Jason forever? Could she even forgive him for asking such a thing? Maya finally opened up to a close friend who listened without judgment, but also offered a candid perspective. If you're already feeling this hurt by his request, think about how you'll feel afterward. Will this truly bring you closer together, or will it open a door to secrets, jealousy, and emotional disconnection? Mia's emotional attachment to Jason made the situation even more complicated. She found herself questioning the meaning of fidelity, love, and intimacy. Was she being asked to sacrifice her emotional well-being for the sake of his desires? Would their relationship survive, or would it unravel beneath the weight of her emotional conflict? In the end, Mia made the decision to have an honest conversation with Jason about the deep hurt she felt. She realized that this request was less about the act itself and more about the unspoken needs and insecurities in their marriage. As they talked, it became clear that Jason's request was rooted in his own emotional struggles, which he had never shared before. The two had to face the uncomfortable truth that their relationship was in a fragile place, and they would need to rebuild trust, communication, and emotional intimacy if they were to move forward. The intersection of desire and betrayal is one of the most intricate emotional landscapes in a relationship. When trust is at stake, the emotional journey becomes a mixture of intense feelings, conflicting thoughts, and a sense of vulnerability that neither partner may fully understand. This is particularly evident in situations where one partner introduces an unexpected request or desire that pushes the boundaries of what is considered acceptable within the relationship. In such moments, emotions can surge in every direction: fear, confusion, sadness, and even shame, as the relationship's foundation begins to tremble under the weight of unspoken desires and unmet needs. When Jason made the request to Maya, asking her to engage with 5 other men, the complexities of desire and betrayal became immediately apparent. On the surface, his desires seemed to be motivated by a need to explore something new, perhaps to reignite a sense of excitement in their relationship. However, for Maya, it wasn't just about what was being asked of her, it was about the emotions that his request stirred within her. At the core of her reaction was the notion of fidelity. What did it mean to remain faithful when her partner was suggesting that she step outside the boundaries they had established together? In relationships where emotional attachment runs deep, Even the smallest violation of trust can feel like a monumental betrayal, no matter how much one tries to rationalize or justify the request. The emotional turmoil Maya experienced was compounded by the fact that her relationship with Jason had always been rooted in mutual trust and understanding. They had built their marriage on the belief that they shared common values, including loyalty and exclusivity. For Maya, this request immediately raised the question, what does this mean for us? The thought of her husband fantasizing about her being with other men wasn't just a simple request, it felt like an affront to the emotional bond they had built over the years. There was a deep-seated fear that by engaging in such a request, she would somehow diminish the trust they had cultivated. Could their relationship withstand this emotional disruption, or would it fracture under the pressure? Another layer of complexity emerged from Mia's internal struggle. She found herself torn between wanting to preserve the connection with Jason and maintaining her own sense of identity and self-respect. On one hand, there was the desire to fulfill her husband's needs and keep their relationship intact, but on the other, there was an instinctual resistance to something that felt unnatural to her. It wasn't that Mia lacked a desire to keep their intimacy alive, she simply didn't believe that stepping outside of their marital bond in such an extreme way was the solution. She started to wonder if Jason's request was less about exploring new fantasies and more about an unspoken dissatisfaction that had always been lurking beneath the surface of their marriage. Was Jason unhappy with their relationship? Was he secretly seeking validation or excitement outside of their connection? The uncertainty surrounding these questions made Maya feel emotionally exposed, unsure of where the request came from or what it revealed about her husband's true feelings. This situation reveals how the dynamics of emotional attachment can create a tense and complicated emotional environment when one partner makes a request that threatens the status quo. While Maya's emotional attachment to Jason remained strong, it also made the experience more challenging. The deeper the emotional investment in a relationship, the more complicated it becomes to navigate situations where one partner's desires push the boundaries of what is considered acceptable. For Maya, her attachment wasn't just about being physically close to Jason, it was about being emotionally secure and knowing that she could rely on him to be faithful to the values they had both embraced. When that foundation was called into question, the emotional burden was immense. Maya's initial reaction was filled with fear and confusion. The sense of betrayal wasn't necessarily rooted in the physical act that Jason was asking for, but in the emotional implications of the request. She couldn't shake the feeling that Jason was testing her commitment, not just physically but emotionally as well. In many cases, emotional infidelity can be more painful than physical betrayal because it strikes at the very heart of the relationship, the trust and security that one partner feels in the other. Mia's emotional journey was a roller coaster of self-doubt, wondering if her own emotional needs were being overlooked or if Jason's desires meant he no longer saw her as enough. Each question that arose only compounded the difficulty of navigating the situation. The request to engage with multiple partners tapped into Maya's insecurities and forced her to confront her own feelings of inadequacy. The request was not just an impersonal fantasy. It was a reflection of something deeper, an unvoiced emotional gap that Jason had either not recognized or failed to communicate. In relationships marked by strong emotional attachment, the act of betrayal is not only about the loss of physical fidelity, but also about the erosion of emotional trust. For Maya, this moment of crisis forced her to ask herself whether the emotional bond she had with Jason was strong enough to survive this kind of test, whether it was possible to move past the hurt, or if the damage was irreparable. Thus, the complex emotions of desire and betrayal were intricately intertwined in this situation. Maya's love for Jason, her emotional attachment, and the trust they had shared were all put to the test, revealing how difficult it can be to reconcile love with the pain of feeling betrayed.